put a microphone near me and I just have to grab it. I want to ask for your help in promoting our friend Laura here. I mentioned A2A yesterday, this new project that we're launching to call attention to advocates, and specifically individuals who have turned adversity into advocacy. And Laura is the first of what we hope will be many eating disorder world advocates who we want to promote, and our goal is to reach out beyond the eating disorder world. What we have to offer is a lot of media power. That's kind of what we bring to the table. So we're hoping to get Laura on NPR. We're hoping to... We need your help though, and I really kind of failed to bring any official sign-up sheet or anything like that. If you would go to our website, there is a place for you to become an A2A ally, which just gives us your email, and you can do this through Facebook as well. But we need your help in getting Laura out there. So thank you for the shameless plug for A2A. And now we're getting 45 minutes.
Jeff has got an eye on this. Okay. Thank you for all coming back on time. I hope you enjoyed your time. I thought that was great. Okay, so the reason I got to choose a dream team of speakers for this conference is so fun to control the agenda and not sit in the audience and go, but why didn't they talk about? And fathers is one of the things that I don't think we hear enough from dads. I don't think we design eating disorder advocacy or treatment for dads. I don't think that we have done a good enough job recruiting dads to be part of F.E.A.S.T. It's something that's very important to me that we not just be a bunch of mad moms. So I'm hoping that our focus on science-based information and our lack of butterflies, and if you look at our materials, no unicorns, feathers and beads, and it's not just because, I don't like them. It's because I think that there is something about that makes it all very female. And I know that for our family, the therapy environment itself seemed it's all talk. Not that, men and women are completely different on that, but I do think that one of the statements that F.E.A.S.T wants to make is that we're a dad's organization too, and we need to hear from dads. And so I have 4 lovely dads who volunteered to share their experiences. And if you did plan on saying something about unicorns or butterflies, that's okay. But let's start with introducing yourselves.
Hello, my name is Tom Bradford. I have to say this is probably one of the most surreal experiences of my life. If you would have told me 2 years ago I'd be sitting in front of 100 people talking about my daughter's eating disorder, I would have thought you were crazy. And Laura has talked a lot about this being an organization of parents this weekend, and I just, that's hit me every time because I'm probably the most ordinary guy you would ever meet. I'm just a guy living on the street. The last organization I was a member of was 4-H in the 6th grade. And I swear this is true. When my daughter told us that she had an eating disorder and I was Googling, treatment, I would type anorexia treatment and it would come up, did you mean? Because I couldn't spell anorexia. But anyway, my daughter is a 19 and she's doing very well. Our story is very similar to a lot of others. We went through a couple of treatments and then we found FBT and then progress has been pretty much linear in the direction of recovery since then. And I gotta say this before I pass this on, I don't want to take up too much time, but I just had probably the most awesome lunch. Sitting at our table with us at lunch today was everybody that was a member of my daughter's team. Caroline, who eased the transition from the treatment center to San Diego. I sat next to Stephanie and Allison from UCSD. I'm also a UCSD guy. And Dr. Raven, who she's like my wife and I drive the ship, and she's the lighthouse that shows us where the rocks are. So, yeah, it's really awesome. The most important member of my life. She is the FTC queen.
Well, hi, I'm Mike Fabrizio. I'm Carmela's dad. Our journey started about 2.5 years ago. And I think at first we were probably in denial, or at least I was, about what was going on. And we started at a local level with a practitioner. And I think I definitely underestimated this disease because I didn't know enough about it. And as things progressed, I quickly realized how powerful and controlling this disease was for our daughter. My wife actually, I would say we would be the loose term. My wife actually was very diligent, and I see in this group, I was just telling Laura that these are kind of the alpha moms. You know, very protective of their children, and they seek out the information or what's best for their kids. And I don't mean it in a negative, but I mean they really do want what's best for their kids and what's going on. So that led us actually to try to get some counseling. And again, some of the things that we were learning was you want to keep your child with you. And so we tried to get counseling in the area, obviously, to keep the family together and things like that. We found a counselor that had some experience with eating disorders. Needless to say, that wasn't very successful because our daughter was not on board at all. She would talk to the counselor, but she would not talk about eating. And as we found out, that's really, that's, at that stage when they're so sick, they don't want to talk about it. As time, I guess it's not a real clear timeline, but as things progressed, we ended up in the hospital. She had to be hospitalized. We took her to a children's hospital, and they had a team. And she was refed there for a while, and actually, again, got up to a weight where she could go home. And we were, I would say, discharged probably a little too soon, but anyway, she ended up having another relapse and was back in the hospital. And I think through this whole time, again, we weren't really convinced that was the way to go with her as far as treatment. And some of the things just didn't jive with what we wanted as a family. And so that kept, I think, my wife, again, she's more of the researcher person, and kind of kept her going and looking for different answers and different practitioners. And we were fortunate to find CCED, which is in Cleveland, Dr. Warren, who's here today. And I guess immediately I felt we were in the right place. And since that time, Carmela has improved. She is starting to get her life back. My role has been probably in the background, and trying to support Carmela in the ways that I can. I guess the hardest thing to learn as a father was trying to communicate and when to step in and when not to step in. And most of the time it's actually probably not saying anything. And just kind of trying to calm the waters, I guess. So things are better. We're still looking and hoping that things will improve along the way. But that's the biggest thing is finding what works for your family and finding what works and staying with it. And I guess the other thing, my wife will disagree with this, but I say listen to your wife. She always listen to her. So, but trust your gut, trust your instincts, and really know what's best. You know what's best for your kids, and don't let people steer you. I guess the things that you don't believe in. I guess my biggest word of advice.
So we introduced you yesterday, but some people weren't here yesterday. So introduce yourself again.
First, I hope you have a really good excuse for not being here yesterday. My name is Jeff, and I have a daughter who's 18, named Brianna. And this is the first time that she has given me permission to talk publicly about what she's been through. She developed anorexia at the age of 15. It has been an incredibly humbling experience for me and my family. And this woman here played a critical role. I was so jealous of those of you in the last session who raised your hands and said that my first phone call was to Laura and F.E.A.S.T. Why could that have been us? We were probably at least 6 months into our nightmare before I reached out to Laura. But I also, when my day job was as a news anchor at KCBS in San Francisco, and for the past 5 years I've done a great deal of advocacy for the OCD world. I wrote a book, actually a couple of books about OCD along the way, and went public about 5 years ago. And it has been so sobering to me that as a guy who is a pretty public figure and has spent a lot of time giving a lot of talks about advocacy in a particular arena, the OCD arena, how incredibly lost I was when this was my own child with a disorder I knew nothing about. And I was thinking today, I get a lot of email from people in the OCD world who want to reach out and ask for some guidance as to where to start. And to be perfectly honest, it's been really tough to keep up with some of that. And for the longest time, it would take me maybe a week or two to get back to people. And because of you, Laura, I have a policy now that I try to get back to people within 24 hours because that's the impact you had on my family. And it wasn't until I was able to have the tables turned and realize how lost I felt and needed someone to, to be able to respond to me that I now see that that's the role I can play for people in the OCD community. So thank you. And thanks also to all of you on making the most amazing connections and learning so much. And I want to thank, in particular, the 3 young women who are here with us who are essentially proxies for my own daughter and have shared with me so much that is going through my own daughter's mind about the recovery process that Brianna's not ready to share with me yet, including your daughter who's been amazing, Leona. So yeah, I'm just thrilled to be here and look forward to being a part of this family.
Good afternoon, I'm Jonathan Aaron. This is my first F.E.A.S.T conference, though I've been involved with the organization for about 5 years. Our daughter Molly started down this road about 5 years ago. We were living in France, where she was born, and we had to make do with the healthcare system that we had, and it was one of those healthcare systems that, although free, was kind of locked in the 70s. And so we went through a 5-month hospitalization, and our daughter was released after those 5 months, still a good ways underweight. And we kind of stabilized there for about a year, just trying to hold the fort down. And it was a real, real nasty time. We're going to talk about the horror stories later, but just to give you the overview, we ultimately, there was a period of relapse, and I believe it was due to Laura that was asking for advice on where could we go in the states that might have a solution. Laura kindly suggested Julie O'Toole at Cartini, and we made a connection, and I flew out with Molly to Portland. That was one trip, and then a year later there was a second trip, and ultimately we decided we needed to have a support team that was local, because we were trying to do outpatient follow-up by Skype, and it's not the most effective way to manage an eating disorder, but it was better than nothing. In any case, we moved to Portland about a year and a half ago, and have continued treatment. Our daughter is doing well at the moment. I say at the moment because who knows which moment this thing changes so quickly. We've had a really tough year, but we're in a really good place right now. So I'm here. When I made reservations to come here, I told Laura, no way I can tell whether I'll be on your panel or not. I have no idea whether I'm going to be able to make it. And I can tell you this is the first November in 5 years.
Oh.
So I had some prepared questions, and I'm going to ask you all to give some questions. My questions are very general, but just to start with, if you guys could share what you found most helpful, focusing on the positive here, what was the most helpful thing for you as a parent, not just as a dad, but as a parent, in helping your kids move forward?
I'll start. One of the things that was very helpful for me was, I guess, as a guy, as a dad, that we kind of compartmentalize things very into little, neat little spaces where our wives and daughters, I'm dealing with the daughter, so everything's kind of a big jumble. And they don't separate things very well, and especially with the eating disorder, I think they don't separate things well. So understanding that even though I can compartmentalize things into neat little packages, that they don't. And then also the other key component, and my wife reminds me this constantly, is you have to separate the eating disorder from your daughter. It sounds crazy, and I guess that's the other thing, is it's a very illogical disease. I try to live my life by a little bit of logic. So for the past 2 years, there has not been much logic. So I mean, that is understanding it's very illogical, and you will not reason with it. So hopefully that's helpful.
Wow, that's a good question. There's so many things that are important. It's hard to say what's the most important. Just the whole process, the learning curve, trying to figure out what to do. I think looking back, probably what was the most important thing for us was just getting directed to accurate information about eating disorders. There's so much stuff out there that is just not current. And, you know, just getting into I'm trying to tie this in sort of how figuring all this out was very hard. Putting the thoughts together, knowing, you know, what to do. But learning about family-based treatment through, the forum and F.E.A.S.T and just having a direction to go really was helpful.
I think the most important thing I learned was, and I think this isn't a dad thing, I think this is just a human thing that we probably all experiences. We have incredible capacity to deal with adversity that we never imagined. And if anyone would have described to me at the beginning what I was facing, I would say, no way, I can't do that. I'll fail at that. There's no way I can handle what I experienced. And we handled it. When that adversity arises and you've got a child that you love that's at stake, I call back to you were talking about the F.E.A.S.T and the orientation towards women, and I remember going on to the F.E.A.S.T forum at the early stages and hearing all you women talk about Mama Bear. Mama Bear. This is Mama Bear. What about Papa Bear? Yeah. And I felt kind of alone because I didn't feel like there were any other dads out there, experiencing it. It felt like I was in a foreign land. Anyway, I find that interesting. And on the subject of dad, since that's kind of the subject that we started with, was I found it kind of interesting. I was looking at the forum a few weeks ago, and someone started a post on inviting other dads to join in and talk. And I found it interesting that everyone, a lot of people popped in. I saw it after the fact, so I wasn't able to join it. But it looked like about a half a dozen dads jumped in immediately. And they were all talking about hiking and hunting and fishing. One mentioned eating disorder. It's a dad thing, I guess, huh? Anyway,
that was just the first step of male bonding. That's how we operate. One of the things that you should probably know is women, from the dad's perspective, I was never a teenage girl. And in all seriousness, that has really hindered my ability to wrap my head around a lot of this. I referenced that yesterday in my talk. I had never paid attention to the societal pressures on women to be thin. Never even gave it a thought before. Nor could I really understand the dynamics of what young women have in terms of pressures at school, for example. So that's been a very humbling aspect of this journey for me as well, is just trying to understand the mindset of a young woman. I think the equivalent to the mama bear is that daddies are supposed to protect their little baby girls. And it's been really tough to be able to feel on the outside sometimes and not be able to get in there and fix something, especially that's so physically challenging and threatening to them. In terms of what's been really helpful to me, cutting through the confusion. It's really interesting. Through my new project, I get a chance to get just a really almost superficial level understanding of what's out there in terms of advocacy for all these different diversity arenas, physical health, mental health, and so forth. And I don't know that there is a more muddied pool of advocacy out there than in the eating disorder world. I mean, the information you get as a parent brand new to this, all over the place. And you guys know that, you're nodding your heads, right? And so it was overwhelming and just so confusing because even within the medical world, the professional medical world, we had Dr. A tell us we should do this, Dr. B tell us we should do that, and we're looking at each other and going, well, how are we supposed to know which doctor to listen to? And so it was, again, really helpful to me, which leads to the short answer of this in terms of what was most helpful, was to find community, was to be able to, and I had never done this before. I had never picked up the phone and called an author of any book that I'd ever written before until I called you. And I was just so lost, and Samantha and I were so lost, and we both read Laura's book. And I said, I've got to track her down and ask her. And so I think that's indicative of the lost feeling that a lot of families, men in particular perhaps, are feeling in terms of just that confusion. Oftentimes, the male role can be the one who is supposed to, and all, mama bear, if you will, is out there gathering all the information. And in our family, there's been no substitute for that. But oftentimes when it comes to, okay, well, now I want you to help me make a decision coming in from the outside, it was really tough for us. And I think that's why the sense of community was really important.
I think one of the things that I was thinking what questions to ask y'all. And I'm not going to ask you to tell me, what you wish your spouse or partner would have wanted, but so, from your experience and from talking to other dads, to let spouses and partners know what would have been helpful. If you could look back, what would have been helpful to have from a partner? Because parenting is one thing, but keeping our relationships healthy when we're going through this is one of the tough parts of caregiving. So that's something I think that we should be talking about in our community.
I'll let you handle it.
You're delegating that?
Just thinking back on how this was going, go hunting. Our roles, my wife and I had sort of a backwards situation. I was the one that found F.E.A.S.T and researched it and did all the work and put it all together. And my wife is a substance abuse counselor, and she comes from the treatment center world. And so we got locked into this thing about I wanted to do this and she wanted to do that. And we worked it out pretty well, I think, in the end, because we both cared. We both cared about our daughter, and she wasn't doing well. So probably I would say the most important thing that I wish my spouse would have done.
I'm trying not to go there.
Maybe get on board a little bit quicker. But she did get there.
Mine's probably easier. I wish my wife would just not taken it so hard as far as a lot of the blame and the guilt. And I think that would have helped. I mean, I guess coming to the realization that there are, we didn't cause this, I guess. And I think she still feels responsible in many ways. But moms, you're not to blame. Dad's not. We're never to blame. Or at least we don't take the blame.
Same deal.
I'm just thinking about the irony of this particular group of men offering relationship. Is this really what you want? I'm just thinking back. I've had this ideal marriage 24 years now, and I would have never thought that we could have been in the position we were and to be in such a strained relationship. And I know, looking back on it, why that was the case. And I'd be in awe of any couple that made it through this ordeal of eating disorders without having those strains, because some of them are subtle. I mean, think about the financial side of it. We were sitting there watching our finances just dwindle away to nothing, and that puts a strain on things. And I think there was probably, in the counseling world vernacular, some projecting of that. I think we also found that we were kind of digging in and entrenching in our positions because of that confusion. And we should do this, no, we should do that. As it turned out, we both really laid in and held the ground for a couple of really bad decisions. So when we go back, at least when we look at it historically, we both are equally responsible, if you will, for having made a couple of really bad decisions along the way, and doing the best that we could. But boy, I definitely got a sense of the strains that this could put on a relationship, because you want answers and they're not there, and you keep looking to each other and you can't provide those answers for each other. I think we disappoint each other, but fortunately we were able to get through it, and I certainly understand one of the many, many benefits of the family therapy is those therapists that are addressing those relationship issues. And your relationship advice?
Turn off the live stream real quick.
I think my situation is probably different than a lot of dads. I was at home. I just sold my company, and I was kind of twiddling my thumbs trying to figure out what to do next. And then my daughter got sick, and then I had a job for 5 years. And it became a full-time job. My situation was that my wife was at home as well. She was a teacher, so her students were coming to the house, and so we had the kind of unique situation where both members of the couple were there to manage the illness 24/7. So I think we developed some very good working relationships very early on that not only helped our daughter, I'm sure of that, she told us so, but helped us survive as a couple. I'm actually in awe of any couple that can make it through this illness where both parties aren't in it together. It's just such a devastating, pulling apart illness. It works its dynamics in such strange ways that if both parties aren't really working together, I can't see how the couple can survive. We worked out a system of almost a tag team approach. It was a tag team approach. When things got real bad for one of us, we would kind of reach under the table and tap the knee, and that was the sign for the other to take over. And it worked, and we didn't have to, embarrass the other in front of, I'll take over, honey. No, it was very, very subtle, very discreet, and the other one kind of withdrew, and the other one came in, and we provided each other the relief necessary to manage. Didn't always go smoothly, but it was a survival technique, and like I said, I can't imagine one parent doing that by themselves. I know I couldn't have done it by myself. I don't think I could even get through it. But it's from our perspective, to answer your question, I think probably one thing that I would have appreciated is if my wife actually pushed me out the door and said, "Get some air." I think I was too much into it, too obsessed with the illness myself, and felt I needed to be there all the time. And I think I would have appreciated really being pushed out the door and said, "Go hunting" or something. Well,
But I have one more question before I open up to questions. I'm interested in your perspective, and I'm not sure if it would be different for dads or moms, but what do you need from the advocacy world? What do you need for peace? What should we be doing to help families? Thinking back on what you would have needed when you landed.
Wow. The thing that I can go back to that probably, and I think it's a pretty common theme here, in crisis mode, what do you do? I mean, that was we had this huge crisis. Where do you go? Where do you find information? And good information, I guess. Because we had, the internet, you pull up and eating disorders or treatment or whatever, and you get kind of a jumble of things. And I told Dr. Warren this, and you know, he was the best kept secret in Ohio for us. It took us a while to get to him, but we were very thankful that we did get to him. So that would be my thing, is just acts. I don't know how you get to good information, or I was talking to somebody else today, just even the, I don't know if it's the Angie's List of providers, or
Advertising on magazine.
yeah, but something of that, you know, for a family that is in crisis. I mean, because we were really very stressed in crisis, and again, as a dad or as parents, you felt helpless. You have this huge problem, and you don't know what's good, what's bad, but you're trying to listen to the people that are in front of you, and then, you know, cipher through it. So, I guess the other thing was too that, you know, it is good providers, I think, are very far and few between, and that was the other thing was, you know, somebody's telling you, well, you got to go to Oklahoma, or you have to go to California, or you have to, and that becomes a very, I think, stressful, you know, adds more stress. Well, how are we going to do that? Are we going to send our daughter away, or are we going to send, you know, or how are we going to be involved and do all that stuff? So, I mean, that was the thing, you know, I guess regionalizing, you know, again, provide, I don't know, something like that, but that is something that I would like to see, but I don't know if it's possible.
One suggestion that I might put out there for these to consider, I think because so many of us start in the middle of the night online doing our research, I would love to see, I'm just trying to think, quite honestly, just practically, what would have been most helpful to me. Maybe a YouTube video. As a dad, for many of these other esteemed colleagues of mine on the panel, looking into a camera and talking to me. And perhaps if you did want to drill down just to dads and moms, just a parent speaking to other parents. But one of the things that I am finding in the advocacy world is that, first of all, everything is moving online as that first point of reference, especially with something like this where, again, we're researching in the middle of the night. It's one thing to read an article, it's another to have somebody speak directly to me. And I think that might have been really a lifeline to have that sort of a resource available on the FEAST website.
Is that you volunteering?
Yes.
Face to radio, these gentlemen here will be working.
Because that's part of the problem. You know, getting a mom on camera. It's hard. Getting dad on camera. That'd be great. Do you want to do it?
I don't think I have too much to add to that. I think the possibility of treatment centers around the world is a real serious issue. And there's probably no easy solution for it. I think I agree that you could somehow figure out an advocacy position that would push for the creation of local community-based centers all over the place. That would be a hell of a goal. So we don't have to fly, we walked, I don't know, 24,000 miles to treat our daughter. That's a little extreme, but it sure would have been nice to have someone in our local community that could have done the job. And I'm sure you will face similar situations. So as an organization, as a point of reference to push for, I think that would be a vital thing for this type of treatment, which is family-based. You need to be local. It takes it work.
I'm not lobbying, but I will mention that the FREAD Act does include centers of excellence, like it was in the autism bill. And so anyone interested in that concept might want to talk to the DDC.
Yeah, I would just like to put in a plug. As far as that goes, is the forum. If you're not familiar with the Around the Dinner Table Forum, that is where I found everything I needed to know. You know, one of the scary things about this when my daughter was so sick is I didn't see anybody get better. You know, does anybody recover from this? And as a matter of fact, the executive director of or the clinical director of the treatment center my daughter was in told me about F.E.A.S.T. And so I went to F.E.A.S.T. and somehow just the stars were lined up right, and I clicked on around the dinner table for her. And I asked a couple of questions, and I was bombarded by people giving me suggestions, mama bears, you know, telling me, you know, who, you know, and these are people, this is where the recovering kids were. You know, this is where I found all the recovering kids is on the forum. And it's the best resource that I have found. And I've spent as much time as anybody, I guess, on the internet reading about eating disorders. But as far as professionals' experience with different, you name it, you know, referrals, people that are in your area. You know, one of the big problems is finding somebody where you live. You know, and no matter what question you have, 24/7 you can ask it, and somebody will give you a good answer. I mean, a good answer, not a junk answer. Yeah. So anyway, thanks.
We pay them for those.
No, really. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
So I have not managed the time so that we have a lot of question time, but I did want to give everyone the opportunity. Let's use the mic so it goes on the audio.
I wanted to say it's not a question, it's a statement, that I feel like if I had seen a group of dads speaking when I was sick, I would have given treatment a second thought really quickly, because I think that as you share a voice that your daughters might not hear often enough, and I hope that there are some people out there who might be currently struggling and wondering whether or not their parents care, and I think to see dad speaking is really powerful. And I also wish my dad would have had you speaking to him when I was sick, because I put him through how much I he went through. So thank you so much for doing this.
Well, that was really nice. That's really sweet. This is wonderful because on the forum, I didn't even know there were any dads on the forum until I figured out who Tom was on the forum. And seeing so many dads here, I think I met a few dads last year at the conference, but this year, that's huge. As you know, I live in the UK, and I hear quite frequently from other mothers that are in our situation looking after our daughters that their husbands are just not involved at all and are in some sort of denial. And I can't, and I think that is probably the case with my daughter's father, but I've never quite gotten my head around that. So to see that there's a start of a panel at least here to be the pioneers maybe of getting dads really involved and giving them the courage to be involved and understand and know that they can relate to somebody else, especially on the forum. Maybe you should indicate in your forum name that you're not on the street. You're God, you live on the street. Sorry.
He's one of our moderators.
Yes, Tom's a moderator, and I think you're the only guy moderator, aren't you?
Yes, he's our first guy moderator. It isn't because we discriminate, it's because we take who comes to us to volunteer. I hope you'll all volunteer.
Oh, yeah.
We only have another minute, and the gentleman...
No, actually, my question today.
Okay. Then,
Jacques, I know you don't feel like
I don't think
We can't hear.
I know, Jacques, you don't feel like a hero.
but you really are a hero to us. My question for you and for all the dads is, I don't know anyone who's traveled as far as you did, who got the mountain of truly terrible advice that you did and waded through it. How did you and Deborah manage your other children throughout this?
Next year, we're having a sibling panel.
That was a real tough one. I'm sure all of you have got your siblings involved. It's the classic case of having to make terrible choices. I was likened it to kind of a Sophie's choice type of thing, where you got to do something to save one, and who knows what's going to happen to the other in the process, and you do your best. I remember one particular incident where our son was 2 years older than our daughter. He was 14 and she was 12 at the time, and we were trying to calm her down from her explosions at the time, and we found that letting her watch TV would help her. She could choose to pick the show she wanted to watch. And then her brother comes in and says, why don't I get a vote here? Is it just because I'm not trying to kill myself that I don't get a voice in this house? And I had to turn to him and say, yeah. And it's a really, really tough thing to say, and I'm sure it resonated with him. We've stuck with him for many years, and I think he understands it now and he's come to terms with it. He's enriched by the experience, for better or worse. But it was really tough to handle, but ultimately the family all came together to support. So it worked out. My son, who was torn apart by this illness, ended up writing his college essay about coming to terms with it, and that him. So
some benefit.
Yeah.
I'm sure we could really hear more from dads, and I hope the symbolism of that we're listening to dads is part of the message here. So I want to thank you all for very